All right, good afternoon. The Rains Feldman Cyber Liability Gang is here once again. I am Eric Syverson. To the left is the brilliant Scott Lesowitz. To my right, the even more brilliant Steve Geblin. So we're in good shape this week. And this week we want to discuss what preventative steps a business could possibly take to prevent it from being defamed online by current or former employees. Now, as most business owners know, this is a real epidemic right now on the internet, and that is your former employees and your current employees defaming you in horrible ways on various websites, which will go unnamed here today, but some of them are very well known. So guys, let's throw it out there. My idea, I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to start with Steve. Steve, if I'm a business owner and I'm susceptible to defamation on these anonymous review sites, one thought I have is I want them to sign a non-disparagement agreement, if not a non-disclosure agreement, when I hire them. Can I do that?
Well, those are two separate provisions, but yeah, you can do a non-disclosure agreement. Typically, that's going to be limited to trade secrets, though, so it won't prevent them from saying or confidential information. So things that are actually secret within the information, not public information. But your non-disparagement clause, yeah, that can be a standard provision in your employment agreement, and that's an enforceable agreement.
So now let's pose a question to someone I referred to as a genius 2 minutes ago.
Although the lesser genius.
the lesser genius. It just depends on the day.
Equally brilliant, at least.
Equally brilliant. Now, Scott, I'm thinking if I have this non-disparagement agreement signed and my employee goes on one of these review sites and trashes me, I could sue them for breach of contract, right?
Yes, and I think this is a really good idea that you have. I'm not just saying that to butter up to you.
Does that put me on a level with you and Steve Geblin?
In terms of creativity, yes. I'll concede that this day.
Intellect, maybe not, but creativity, yes. All right. Now, I just thought of something else I'd like to put in my agreement with my employees. What do you think about this, Scott? Attorney's fees provision. I think that would be a good thing to stick in there potentially, right? You want to recover your attorney's fees if you have to sue these people?
These are all things that should be enforced by a court and will make it easier to pursue a lawsuit. That you're not just limiting yourself to defamation where you have to prove that, they have to be statements of fact, you have to prove that, that these are not just merely opinions, because the non-disparagement clause, even if it's a negative opinion, you're going to be able to have a case, whereas usually with online defamation, if someone's merely voicing a negative opinion, you can't sue the person for defamation.
So let's put this into real terms. Scott, when we hired you here, let's say I entered into this non-disparagement agreement with you, and when I fire you, and when you leave and you go online and call me a bunch of names and call me a jerk, that wouldn't support and say that I'm a really bad guy. I wouldn't be able to sue you for defamation because it's opinionated, but I could sue you for breach of contract under this scenario.
Yes, and get the attorney's fees too. I agree. This is something that, this is something that's going to be in contracts for CEOs and high level, officials like that, for companies. So why not do it for lower level employees that might go on the internet and disparage the company, especially for smaller companies where this is a real risk of, 2 or 3 employees can ruin your reputation.
Okay. I think another good reason to do this is that a breach of written contract is a 4-year statute of limitations in California, and defamation is a 1-year statute of limitations. So we've figured out a way to give us a cause of action that has a longer lifespan. One of the things that I've noticed and that we've all noticed in our practice is business owners who are the victims of defamation oftentimes let it slide for a period of 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year and a half. Maybe 2 years later they lose a big deal because of something someone said 2 years ago and they didn't act on it back then. Here, 2 years after the disparaging statement, you're in the clear, if not, 3, 4 years. So, Steve, I think from a statute of limitations perspective, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you do have the statute of limitations covered. You have a written contract, so it's a 4-year period here in California, much longer than the 1 year you would have it under defamation. However, there's sort of a practical consideration you want to think about going the other way is, if it's an anonymous posting on the internet, there is evidentiary work you have to do to connect that anonymous post to the employee that made it. And those kind of records may not last until your statute of limitations, through the entire statute of limitations period. As we've run into before, you have to link up the account to an internet service provider, the internet service provider to the user that typed it into their computer. And those last records may be gone within as short as 6 months or as long as 18 months, 2 years, but they're not held indefinitely by internet service providers.
I'm really glad you said that, so I didn't have to ask you about that. So the message to business owners is, I think you really want to think about implementing this, particularly if you're susceptible to this type of defamation, which, the privately held business, the 50, the 100, the $200 million a year widget manufacturer service provider is really who is susceptible to this type of employee defamation, because they don't have the national or global brand identity that other companies do. So that's a little bit of practical advice. Any business owners that see this, don't be shy, give us a call and we can walk you through these strategies. That's the Rains-Feldman Cyber Liability Update for this week. See you next time.